So this week, the topic is graphical user interfaces. So what we're adding now essentially is interactivity. And this kind of interactivity is something that you need, of course, in the background. You need to have some sort of code running. So something like processing, not progressing. The question now is, as soon as you add interactivity, I mean, so far when you do print things, it's not interactive. I mean, people look at it, but there's usually not much forth and back, right? And now we're adding this to it so that when actually, people act upon whatever you created, it does something. And of course, for that, there needs to be code in the background somehow. So, but before kind of diving into that, let's have a bit of a review of different type of user interfaces that there are. So who has ever worked with this one? You have? So can you explain, what does it do?
Bashing or terminal?
Say it again?
Terminal or bash? Both are the same, the terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you can give commands to the kernel, which is a core thing. So it acts upon the commands. The commands will be in particular syntax, and you can give only one command at a time. If you want to give more commands, you have to give it in a specific file and call that file. And it can do pretty much anything, most of the things. It can even regulate the processor clock. It can go deep into the hardware level. This terminals have access to that. You can interface devices. You can pretty much do anything. All these things are actually built upon this command.
So what's the advantage of it?
If you are a very seasoned programmer, this would be easier way to do things. For example, connect to some other interfaces. You just need 2 or 3 lines other than clicking here, going there, clicking this thing. But if you're a newbie, it's very hard.
So that would be my second question. What's the disadvantage?
If you don't know how it works, it's very hard.
Why is it hard?
Because you have to learn the syntax, you have to learn the commands, you should know how it works. And if there's an error, it's hard to figure out without help.
Mm-hmm. So the beauty of it is that you can actually write in something like human language. I mean, an abbreviated form of human language. And you can express a lot of things through that. But the disadvantage, of course, is that you need to know the language. Otherwise, you can't speak. And of course, this was there before we had graphical user interfaces, right? So this was prior to it. And that's kind of part of the problem, is that, all the knowledge has to be in your head, which means you have a lot of learning to do. And for a lot of casual users, this is not appropriate, because they just don't have, they don't necessarily want to learn a whole language before they can do something, right? So these days, McDonald's restaurants has got like a terminal in front where you can place your order, right? And you essentially have a touch screen, you click your order together, right? You don't want them to essentially learn how to use a badge, and yes, you might be able to be much faster to order your meals that way, but the learning curve is just not appropriate for the application. So after that, we had this. So what's this?
It's more or less the same, but you have options, and it's more like the doors we have in Windows. It's not user-friendly, but it can be a little user-friendly. Like you can have lists, select from the lists using arrow keys and stuff like that.
So what's the advantage of this?
You can get a pretty good idea about if it's a list, it's pretty easy to select or navigate. Navigation is a little bit easier than the other one doesn't have any navigation, and we can get help, and the layout would be pretty nice.
And what's the disadvantage?
It also has a little bit of learning curve.
Yeah.
Not really, but you have to press type. There's no try to take the mouse.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
For some people, for some people, if they prefer mouse.
So what's the advantage of just using the keyboard?
Faster, it will be faster.
So surprisingly, these kind of interfaces are still being used. You would have thought that this has gone a long time, but no, it isn't. And one of the reasons is that for highly repetitive tasks, this is actually pretty good. You just memorize the sequence of the letters that you have to type to get something done, so you can be very, very fast with it. Plus, it does show you don't have to memorize everything, because it actually shows you what your options are at the time. Plus, this whole thing, of course, is just built upon a terminal. So it doesn't really require much computing power. So you can have very, very cheap and old computers, and this one still runs on it and does everything you want. So, sort of working. So, and then we already looked at that, didn't we? So this is a Xerox Star, and now we've got the mouse, now we've got the desktop, now we've got folders, now we've got menus. So what's the advantage of this?
You don't have to be a programmer to understand. You can see the icons and make a sensible decision based on that without knowing the actual language. It's more logical this way.
Well, in the first instance, it uses a metaphor, right? It uses the metaphor of a desktop. It uses the metaphor of a folder, and actually makes it look like a folder. Although, strictly speaking, from a computer science perspective, you can have virtual folders. You can do all kind of stuff that you cannot do with paper, that you can actually do in the computer system. So the metaphor sometimes is broken, right? But still, fundamentally, it exists.
It's accounting for the fact that humans aren't meant to use computers, and most of them don't really like to. Because most people are more comfortable, I would say, using things that exist in the physical world, which is why the metaphor is useful. People understand what a folder is. They don't understand all the stuff that's going on in the background and make it work on a computer. And most of them probably don't want to. They just want to get their job done.
Yeah. That's essentially what we would all want, is some sort of butler that has some sort of implicit understanding of your desires, of your patterns, and of your personality. And ideally, even without you saying anything, does the right thing for you. That would be the ideal thing, wouldn't it? But of course, the problem is the only way we can get machines to do it is machines require precise instructions. And when we say things to each other, actually our communication is extremely ambiguous, and a lot of things go wrong in our communication. So human communication is not necessarily that easy either. So if you want to have it a precise communication, you need to formalize it. And of course, then the question is, are humans good at rational thinking? And if you look at dual processing theory, which kind of anybody aware of that? Dual processing theory?
The term, I don't know what it means, but it's
Yeah, so there's a very famous book that you can have a look at. It's called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, and essentially talks about how our brain works to some degree, and it distinguishes between two systems, System 1 and System 2, where System 1 is more of the intuitive, fast, old kind of thinking, and System 2 is the rational thinking. And one of the problems is indeed that rational thinking is a rather new part to our brain. So when compared to the old parts of our brain, it's a new capability. It is very demanding in terms of energy use, and humans are generally trying to avoid to use that as much as possible. Because it is such an effort for us to use our rational thinking. Still, the problem is that it's an interesting problem because on the one hand, certain problems you can only solve with rational thinking, so you need it. But sometimes when the complexity of the problem exceeds what you can handle with your rational thinking, the next best thing you have is a guess, right? So sometimes, funny enough, our brains are intuitively able to do things which computers struggle with, right? So, Now, one thing to, of course, to remember is that, whenever things are different from each other, like you've got a different way of interacting with a system, that does not automatically mean it's better, right? So coming up with a new way of interacting, a new way of showing something, that doesn't really cut it, because just being different is not good enough. You have to also show that it is better, right? And that's of course what our evaluation lectures are all about, is the ability to show how good something is in comparison. And currently we have, of course, as sad as it is, the web is where the money is right now, right? So if you want to get any kind of, a lot of the jobs that are out there right now, one way or the other, require web technology. And if you want to get really, really rich, what you do is like you start up a company, grow a little bit, and then you're being bought up by another big company for millions of dollars. And that's the way how you get very quick, very rich. So, So, for us to move in this direction, I would like to introduce you to a piece of software called Axure. And Axure is a piece of software that allows us to prototype graphical user interfaces. And this is just a screenshot of it. And the beauty of it is that you don't actually have to write any line of code to make it work. So that's kind of nice and easy to pick up. It has a library of extensive libraries of all sorts of elements for the screen. So you can make your prototype look immediately like an iOS app or like an Android app. You don't actually have to create a button that looks like an iOS button, right? That's kind of sweet. It uses a page metaphor, which is similar to, what we use on the web. Okay, yes, these days things are all kind of, the page metaphor sometimes is quite a bit broken because we can have more advanced technologies these days. But still, it is kind of an easy way to know things and to structure your thoughts around. So that's kind of a nice way. It does have the ability to do quite sophisticated and nuanced interactions. So you can have all the events triggered, like when your mouse rolls over the button, then something's supposed to happen. Once your mouse rolls off from the button, something is supposed to happen. When you click the mouse down, something is supposed to happen. So it has all these kind of nuanced things that you may want. Another part which is quite nice about it is that it has a lot of documentation features. Because one of the problems that you have is if you deal with with a client and you want to communicate the result of your work, an interactive system, the only way to document it really is by having it working. And your client then, of course, will say like, oh yeah, I mean, if you just show them just some still images, you know, they would say like, yeah, but this is not how I thought it would work. And what you of course want is that you want, when you have your prototype, you want it to be signed off by your client who says like, yep, this is good, this is how we want it. And for that you need to be able to document it, exactly what the system does, at every click on every page, what exactly is going to happen. Because the main reason for that, again, is what we talked about before, is change requests, right? So the problem will be, your client will say like, oh, I didn't thought it would work this way. This is not what I had in mind. What the system should do is like this and this. And if this is presented as a form of miscommunication between you and the client, it becomes difficult to determine who's going to pay for it. Well, you'll be asked to fix this, you know, just out of your own budget, or, you know, so there's no extra money for it. But if you have it extremely well documented, what you can do is you can say, look, this is what we agreed upon. You know, here's the specification. You signed off from it. I'm more than happy to change it, but you'll have to pay for it, right? So essentially, it safeguards you against change requests when it's unclear where the responsibility lies, right? So ideally, what you want is the responsibility of the client, so you can get paid for it. And again, you need to have a positive attitude towards changes. Because every change that they ask for, they'll have to pay, which means you get more money. So it's a good thing. So sometimes you might feel like, oh, you know, the client doesn't understand it, he's stupid, or, oh, now I have to redo everything. It's great if you have to redo everything, because, again, it actually gives you a lot of money. So the trick is indeed to be at good terms, of course, with your client, but also have precise documentation about what it is that you exactly agreed upon. And Axure will help you to do that. Some other nice things about it are that it uses, you can do teamworks, and also it spits out the whole thing as an HTML prototype.
Yeah, does it have, can we take an app as an output, or just the prototype?
So this is a general purpose prototyping tool, so you can prototype anything you want, any kind of interactive system.
So does it have an option to export the thing we did as an app?
Not as an executable app. It will spit everything out essentially HTML based, which you can run in a web browser on an app. So in that sense, yes, but indirectly.
When we're prototyping an app in that, are we supposed to use it like that example you had that had a little iPad already on the screen? Is that included in there, or is that some extra?
So this frame, for example, is just an element that you can just drag and drop in there.
From like you save like
a library.
Okay, so like it's like a PNG or something that you.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you can prototype, for example, an app while actually showing it on a computer screen. It looks then like you're on an iPad, but you're not. Of course, if you intend to show it on an iPad, then you don't put that frame on there, because there would be a frame in a frame, which would be silly.
But if we needed to prototype something that used the functionality of the iPad home button, because you can't use the home button on the iPad in the web browser.
So then we come back to your question, is it like an app or is it like an HTML thing? And it is like an HTML thing. So no, the home button will not be an option. Then you have to indeed show it as essentially on a computer screen or a laptop. But again, the beauty is, if you, let's say, shoot this up on the web, you can show it to your client, or they can actually look at it by themselves. You know, you just give them a web address, and they can essentially work through and look at the prototype, and you don't have to be there, right? So as a matter of fact, there is a built-in sharing function where Xur actually has a server where you can just upload your project, share the link with your client, and then your client can even comment on, let's say, the interface. You can say, okay, here, this should be like this, it should be like that. So it's a great way of communication, really. So the task for next week will be to do a very simple tablet touch graphical user interface. And to keep things simple, I would just like you to do a different version, hopefully a better version, of a little app that I created myself, which is called the Unofficial Lego Manufacturer Catalog. It's available for free, so you can just download it, have a look at it, and then do it better. It's a very simple data-driven application.
Is that app available for Android?
Yes. And yep. So that's the task. Just take that. Of course, you don't have to do the whole app. There are like over 8,000 records in there, right? You're not going to do 8,000 records, right? That's silly. But the point is to demonstrate the interaction principle, right? So you can look at it how it's done currently, and maybe you find a better way of doing it, right? And of course, one of the problems that we have is fragmentation. If you just look at the screen sizes and the resolution that the displays have, it's for Android it's even worse than for iOS. So that's always a challenge. So you need to keep that in mind about how you're going to do that. How do you design for different screens?
Android development kit has that power to do that. If you export an app, it will make copies of, for example, 724 all the parameters that differ in a 720 will go into a folder. All the parameters that for the 480 will go into a folder. So the app essentially contains all the information, and when you download it from the Play Store, only that particular folder that your phone needs will be downloaded. So
yes. So that is essentially what you do is, let's say you have different versions for different phones, or let's say screens. But of course, then the problem is, are you going to have one for every possible screen? No. Then you probably start to have groups, like you have a small screen, medium screen, large screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So within the large screen, there'll still be differences. So you still need to adapt, right? And then the other problem, of course, is that then suddenly you have to maintain 3 different versions, which is a lot of work. So, and that's where the idea of responsive design comes from. It's like you only have one design that kind of is being scaled and reorganized depending on the screen on which it's being displayed. And then you only have to maintain one version instead of multiple versions, which makes it slightly easier. But then you also have got the problem of portrait versus landscape. So here is an example from, this is the iTunes University. No, this is the iBook. Now, okay, it's changed again. So now this is, Apple has a software called iBook Creator or something like this. And what it allows you to do is to create interactive books. And depending on whether you hold the screen, in portrait or landscape, everything changes. So the functionality changes depending on whether you do it in portrait or landscape, which is an interesting view on it. For your purpose, the question is, does the interface change when you go from portrait to landscape? Or are you going to fix it for portrait or for landscape? Those are the challenges that we have these days when designing for these kind of devices. So, a little bit of a demo. Right, so because what I want you to do is actually, I want you to do an in-between step. Because, going immediately for the full thing might be a little bit scary. So that's why I thought, let's have an in-between step. And the in-between step, let's do this one. I uploaded 2 little interactions And the only thing I want you to do is redo it, right? As closely as possible. So, oh, there's an update, yeah, but I don't want to do this right now. So, let's see if I can make this work. Ah. Okay. No, I don't want that. Jeez. Okay, right. So here you see the prototype. It's full beauty, right? And there's one button on it. And when you go over, something happens. If you click it, that's it. Right? So this is the make everything okay button. Very simple. I think well, it's as simple as it gets, I guess. Right? And you can do all of this without writing a single line of code. Right? Where's my cursor? All right, here we go. So this is how the screenshot was slightly. There's always new versions, right? So this is how it looks these days. Slightly different, but one of the nice things is that you can also share it. So if you set up an account with Axura, you can then share it. It will upload your project to a website, and then you can share this URL with me and others, your client, and so forth, which is kind of nice. And you can also, I'm not sure what the publish is. Anyway, so here are, for example, the libraries, with all kind of elements already in it. You can download new libraries into it. So load from Axura share. No, that's not here. Okay, if you go to the website of Axura, it will have, they have a whole library of things available. It used to be that you can download it directly from within here. But now you apparently have to, there's quite a lot of things in here. So here's the point. Realism doesn't always help. Right? So if you make a prototype look like it's perfect, pixel perfect prototype, the expectation of your client will be, well, this is the thing, this is how it's going to look like. Well, maybe that's not the intention, right? And so particularly if you are in an earlier stage of developing, you do not want it to look perfect. Ideally, actually, you want it to look like hand-drawn, so it's crystal clear that this is just a mock-up, this is not the real thing. And it's much easier for a client to understand that this is not the real thing when it's hand-drawn, right? So there are even elements in here that, make it look like it is hand-drawn, right? Because it's not about the visuals in terms of making it look pretty, but it's about how it's going to work. Like what happens if you click this button? Where do you get? It's all about the interactivity more than about the visual design. Of course, later on you can, if you want to, design your own buttons and make it all perfect, nice if you want to, but that might not be necessary. So ideally, what happens is when you have this kind of prototype in here, you can give this prototype to a developer who then knows how everything's supposed to work, and then the developer and the designer work together to make the graphics and make the interactivity into the final product. Right? Okay, so, and the second one...
Wouldn't it be better if it had the capability to export the app the program will have to do
Well, yes. So there are some, I suppose by now there are some environments that allow you to export apps directly. For example, some of the Adobe products, particularly Adobe InDesign, has the functionality to export your stuff as an app. Also, Quark Express has it. I've been looking into that myself for a little while, but it turns out that Adobe InDesign is more going to the direction of magazines. So having kind of interactive magazines that you can essentially sell through the Apple newsstand, I think. Or if you want to, essentially they have a service they run and they want to sell you this extra service. So it was not for free. So that's why I stopped at this point. There are some editors, I assume, where you can create apps without touching code. Yes, they probably exist.
To get it onto an, even if it did export an app, to get it onto an iOS device, you have to jailbreak it first and do Cydia and that whole thing to be able to sideload it. Because you can't just get it in through the App Store unless it's in the App Store.
Not exactly. So when you are developing an app for iOS, and if you're registered with Apple as being a developer, you have the possibility to upload your, let's say, beta app to your own devices, actually to any kind of devices, and then you can give it even to testers. So every iOS device actually has a unique ID, and essentially you define, okay, on these unique IDs, this app can run, and then can you literally just push it onto your device and then try it. So you don't have to go through the iTunes store to be able to distribute apps or to, distribute in terms of testing, or how to load it to your own phone. That's all possible. It is a little bit, since I've been working on this app myself, I experienced the pros and cons of iOS and Android, and the iOS platform is a bit more complicated because it asks you for profiles and certificates, and it's quite a hassle to get your app into the App Store. Whereas with Android, it's like really simple. You just shoot up your IPK, and that's pretty much it. It's in comparison, it is easier. But of course, here again it's kind of a trouble, because if you are developing an app, you don't want to be limited to one platform. And then now you've got the problem, like either you create a universal app that runs on both, which these days very often means that these kind of apps are based on web technology. So in the background, it's nothing else than a web page with some JavaScript and some additional stuff. And then it has the advantage you can run on both platforms. Or you have to essentially create two versions, one for iOS, one for Android, and maintain them separately. But then you have the advantage that you can take better control of the resources of the individual platform. So you can do much more advanced things. So your app will probably run much faster if you run it natively. So that's again, but that has always been a problem in terms of developing for different platforms. It was like Windows versus Mac, That's where the idea of Java came from, that you actually have an abstraction, that it doesn't matter anymore on which platform it runs, on which hardware it runs, as long as there's a virtual machine in which you can run it, everything will be fine. So, but it continues to be complicated. I think there's still no universal solution for anything. Yeah.
Where do you get, can you recommend where to get those nice demo phones, like is on the screen? Is that through the Xura?
Yes, so if you go to the Xura web page, Xura RP, they have essentially a web page with all sorts of downloads for Um, no, no, no. Where is it? User support. Widget libraries, here we go. So there's all sorts of commercial and non-commercial ones that you can download that does all sorts of things. So here you can get all kind of extra things. And interestingly, look at this one. This is actually meant to look a bit scrappy, I think. Is it? Come on. I'm not sure what I did. But anyway, oh, I'm sorry, of course I get it. This is actually another website which is specialized on X0 widgets. So it's outside of X0. This is yet again another overview, even for Apple Watch or well, there's all kind of things. Again, some of them are commercial. You have to buy it. Quite a few good ones are for free, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. So again, the beauty is drag and drop the buttons in there. Don't design the buttons yourself. But even for the task I gave you with make everything okay, and there's a second task as well linked on Learn, you can just use the default buttons that come with it. You don't have to download anything. Okay. The X0 software is located on our HitLab file server, including the serial number, so you can install it from there. And of course, what this is now leading up to is that after Wednesday, when you have ideally by now you would have your usability test done. And the next step, of course, is whatever you've done, now make it better, right? So your next usability test will be an improvement of whatever you tested before, right? And you will use X0 to prototype that. So once you figured out the problems of your system, the idea is to, of course, improve it. And this would be a tool to improve it with, to make a prototype of it. I mean, it doesn't actually have to work. I mean, not in terms of the final thing, but you can sort of like do the interactivity. If you only have a boarding pass, there's not much interactivity. So, but that's not necessarily a problem. Then maybe X0 is not the right tool for you. You can maybe just use Illustrator to make it better. But in any case, you get the idea, I suppose. But for example, if you wanted to prototype what we have these days on our phones, the electronic boarding passes, you can do that if you think that is the problem. Right? Cool. So, right. So, yeah. So the connection between design and evaluation is clear? Yes?
There's something.
No?
I don't understand it or not, I just have to do it.
Well, see, in your first usability test, you will find problems, right, of whatever it is that you test. And of course, your next step then is to improve it, right, and make a change. And of course, for that, you need to have tools to actually make a prototype of that shows how it can be better. This is the tool. And your second evaluation, usability evaluation, will then be about the thing you created. So you compare the previous version with your improved version. And you can show, hopefully, that you have improved the system. That's kind of the process of it. Yeah. Then good luck with it.
Thank you.